Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jacob Dickey on this 18th of November. The time right now, 1:30. We thought we'd jump on, just flipped to 1:31. We thought we would just jump on our digital platforms and let you know about some strong storms and that are coming on through. Have a couple of warnings that have been popping up here in our area. So as we're logging on, I'd like to make sure that you can hear me. Things are working good. Let me know in the comments where you are watching from. And if you happen to get a hail report, what size it is. That's always really helpful for that here. Hearing about some hail right now in the Decatur area. We've also had some hail east of Effingham, parts of Clark, Jasper, Crawford, and Cumberland counties being reported. So that's what we're doing here. Been a little while since we've had to do some severe weather coverage for you. So shaking the rust off of some things and talking about that now here. So I've got your comments up here. We're looking at a number of different sources as well, and we can forward those reports on. So that is what we will be doing here for the next little bit. First off, at this time, 1:31, two severe thunderstorm warnings, one of them in the Decatur area carrying to the north and east, more east than north, another one then east of Effingham. Now, that's into areas of Clark and Crawford counties coming out of Cumberland and Jasper counties here. We always talked about from today that the bigger threat was going to be for some hail, and that is what we have here. Have also had a hail report from the Cerro Gordo area that just came in a moment ago of quarter-size hail. And so that's something that we continue to deal with here and are continuing to watch for a little bit. So checking the comments, some folks saying it's really dark out there, keeping an eye on things. That's what we will do here for the bit. So again, that report came from emergency managers in, let's see, that's going to be Cerro Gordo area. 1-inch hail in the Cerro Gordo area from these storms coming on through. And that's why that severe thunderstorm warning is up to the north. So that's what we got. Okay, seems like we're getting things going here and taking care of things. So let's talk about these watches and warnings and specifically what we're dealing with. I'm going to start with this northern cluster here. We'll come down to Crawford County in a little bit. That's pretty much moving into the Indiana side of things, the Terre Haute market. But I know we've had some hail in the Hidalgo area and moving off towards Needmore and Moonshine and towards Walnut Prairie. This storm cluster right here showing up now, moving to the east of Decatur. It's mainly for this cluster right here along 36. That's Laplace. Cerro Gordo's up here. You've got Sisseton there. Moving off to the east into southern Piatt, far northern Moultrie counties. Still could be some hail then also towards Maroa, south of Maroa, more towards Forsyth there, Argento, Oriana, as that cluster moves off to the east. And you can see where this is heading. Storms are actually building ahead of that here as it moves off to the east. So that's something that we are watching and keeping a close eye on. And so that's the cluster of storms that we've got moving on through. Again, moving fairly quick at about 50 miles an hour. That'll carry it through southern Piatt, northern Moultrie counties, and then eventually into southern Champaign, northern Douglas counties. That should settle somewhere between Champaign and Tuscola, maybe a little near to Tuscola. So we'll be eventually watching Tolono, perhaps Savoy, Pisodum, Tuscola, and then off towards Allerton, Broadlands, Homer, Sydney, kind of running up the railroad tracks there as we go through southern Champaign County towards Danville into that area. So we'll watch that cluster of storms. Again, had quarter-size hail reported with this in the Cerro Gordo area. Tornado threat, I think, is about zero with this particular cluster of storms. That's because these storms are what we call elevated. They sit above the surface layer here. You think of the layers of the atmosphere as almost layers of cake. Severe storms producing tornadoes have to sit in that lowest layer. This is sitting several layers up, a lot of stable air, but there's instability aloft, which allows for hail reports like this. And that's a little bit about why we thought the hail could be an issue for that. Further to the south, then, this storm has put some hail down. Now riding in southern Clark County. I know it came through Hidalgo. I saw a comment come in. Dylan said there was hail there. If you can let us know the size relative to a coin, something of that. That now has passed Moonshine. They probably had a good lunch there. I think the lunch service ended a half an hour ago at the burger place. So that probably carried through right at the end of there. And now into southern Clark County. It'll be passing well south of Marshall. It's going to be just north of Hudsonville there. Here's Darwin, and then you cross the Wabash River into Indiana pretty quickly. So the southern part of Clark County, where that is located, is what that storm is moving on through. And moving out pretty quickly, this one here looks a little stronger to me. I look at that, and I think that's more of a supercell thunderstorm in nature. And so as it approaches places like West Union, Walnut Prairie, Melrose, Liberty Cemetery, we'll keep an eye on that hail threat. I don't think there's a tornado threat with this one, thankfully. It also seems to be elevated, but some of our velocity products, as we look here, the intensity of the storm, now we want to look and see how it's rotating, not really picking up on anything, which is good news here. Earlier, there may have been a hint of that, but there is some rotation aloft. I'll show you the missing ingredient, though, here. Why don't I do that? And that's going to be our dew point values. So we'll just slide that on in here. In order to get surface-based instability, what we really need is we need dew point values to be in the 60s here. We've got some dry air that's in place. You can see the dew point, I think I'm only 51. So tornado threat, I'm really not worried about. More interesting down here, southern Illinois, probably along the Interstate 64 corridor, south of our area, down towards Paducah, Carbondale, Marion, Harrisburg. That may be where some of this juice kind of slides up on in, just stays south of our area and leaves us with a hail threat. And you can see those dew point values are lower. So we really aren't worried about that at this point with that. So mainly a hail event for us here as these storms continue to roll on through. We're going to bring up some sky cams, and I'm going to switch them around here. In fact, what I might do is just bring sky cams full for you. I was watching Effingham earlier. Some of those individual little cells were rolling on by. They were fun to watch here, kind of dark and gloomy. I've had a few people comment and say, yeah, as they came through Decatur and in that area, getting really dark really fast from these storms. And so that's what we're going to deal with here. So we'll kind of roll through some of our different cameras. So there's Effingham. Let's jump up to Decatur, take a peek there, having some pea-sized hail reports in that. These storms could either produce maybe some isolated quarters, or maybe what we'll be more likely to see is just a lot of small hail, a lot of pea-sized hail. That happened last night in the Oconee area. I got a photo. It looked like it had snowed there, but it was hail. And so we could see some areas that just see a big dumping of really small hail that can stack up here. So kind of glancing around as we look to the east there. There's the ADM plant in the distance as that pans around. Some rain coming down there in downtown Decatur. Probably some hail just to the east. Again, if you have a report of the size, would really appreciate seeing that. Now let's go to our Mattoon camera. I'm going to pop that up there. It looks like the camera kind of tweaked out a little bit there. We'll get the Mattoon camera, and I'm going to point that one back. Now we're looking kind of down to downtown. I'm going to lift it up and back to the left. That'll take it more north and northwest, kind of looking in that direction. That's the general direction of towards Sullivan there, north and west. You can see the water tower there, center screen, the car dealership there, the train station. Being a little far away from Mattoon, Charleston, but I think that cluster of storms is going to stay north of there. We thought we'd only get one of those clusters. And then let's bring in our Champaign cameras as storms start to approach. I did just see a report, I think, in, let me see here, Tolono, some pea-sized hail. And so let me get that stadium camera here, pan down to the south. And I'm going to also forward those reports on to the National Weather Service. So as you get those, be great if you're able to comment in there. Just seeing Pete, a quarter-size hail in the Hidalgo area earlier. Thought that was the case. And now kind of looking to the south there. There's State Farm Center. Looks like it's lit up orange. Not really that impressive a view here, but certainly we will keep a close eye on that and monitor things here for a bit. Again, got a couple of severe thunderstorm warnings in the area here. There's a look at our radar in the region. And main cluster now coming through Dalton City, Cerro Gordo, La Place, kind of along 36, and new severe thunderstorm warning, in fact, just extended now into Coles and Douglas counties. This one taking a little bit of a right turn here. You can kind of see that cluster starting to drop that way. That to me is a sign that we're going to see that strength in there. So Tuscola, Arcola, be towards Sullivan now, just north of Sullivan, maybe it'll miss. Cooks Mills, Humboldt, places like that, Arthur, Oakland, Newman, Charleston, northern parts of Coles County. That storm may be heading your direction a little bit more. So this may be more of an Arcola issue than it is a Tuscola issue. And so that's what we're seeing with that new warning. A lot of times these storms, when they take right turns, that's a sign that they're strengthening here. And it may not be because it's strengthening at the surface. It may be just aloft that things are picking up a little bit. So that's what we'll continue to watch here. And let me pop on some of the data so we can take a read of that here. Looks like that warning now that was just issued for Douglas and Coles and Moultrie counties. Let's see if we can get that text to pop in there for a second. Sometimes it tries to take a minute or two to populate. I may have to manually add it in. because I want to see the data that the warning is issued for here. So that's going to be our watch warning query button there. And we'll pop that on in. I don't know if anyone else has noticed. Today's kind of been a little weird day. Like that data outage this morning threw a couple of our things in a loop. Anyone else having any issues out there? So it's kind of how things go sometimes, but that's all right. So we continue to watch things here. So there's that new warning, and I think we'll see the text pop up now. There it is. New warning for Coles, Douglas, Moultrie, Piatt County, 60-mile-per-hour winds and quarter-size hail. That's going to go until 2:15. That storm moving there to the south and to the east. And so Lovington, LaPlace, Atwood, Garrett, Arthur, Sullivan next in line for that as it moves on through. And it continues to the south and east. So again, this particular cluster, this little core here is taking a little bit of a right turn. I bet there's probably a bit of lightning with that too. Let me just pull on the lightning query in here. See if anything. Sometimes it pops in, sometimes it's not. I noticed some of our data has been a little bit out of it here. And looks like maybe that's not pulling on. And if you've got some lightning too, if you're seeing that, let me know. Big core right over Lovington there. I bet Lovington's getting hit with some pretty good size hail as that's moving on through. So anybody watching from Lovington would love to hear about what's going on there. Again, that's going to carry it off to the east and southeast, then along 133 into Douglas County soon. So we will see that. I'm just going to let the National Weather Service know about the Hidalgo hail report. And then we got some Tolona, some small hail also being indicated. And Dalton City, Margie said there's hail in Dalton City. If you can let me know the size of that. Again, is it getting close to quarter? We would like to hear that. Again, really interested in Lovington in particular. And this could actually end up sparing southern Champaign County. You kind of see if the storm, I'm going to do the last hour here, as it moves to the south and to the east then. You can kind of see how it goes through Decatur, strengthens, takes off, might see some wind and hail issues in that area. And so we could be dealing with that there. So that's going to continue for a little bit as things carry on. Our severe thunderstorm warning goes until 2:15. Arcola, Lovington, kind of, I think, our red line, center line, right along 133. That's going to carry into Arthur. And then south in between Cooks Mills and Chesterville. But likely getting some pretty big hail in there with that at this point. So let me pop up that real quick here and bring that radar back. Looks like Clark County storm to me is kind of weakening. Not really concerned about that anymore. It's carrying on its way out there. It's down by Walnut Prairie, moving across the Wabash River. Margie's saying there's pea-sized hail covering the ground in Dalton City. I would believe that. You get a picture of that, send that my way. Would love to hear that report. And that's what we're dealing with there. So if you got any of those reports, things like that, we'd love to hear about it. Very curious about the Lovington area. So it's 1:44 right now. Let's see here. It's going to be Lovington, Arthur, going to carry us towards Humboldt, Arcola. Let me do the no warning one there. Sean's saying in Hammond's getting hit hard. Yeah, I bet there's some heavy rain. You got any hail in there, Sean? Let me know. Doing a little multitasking, at least right now, as we are continuing our digital coverage here of the severe weather. We can kind of take things a little slower. Again, I think the tornado threat is very low, if not near zero with this type of thing here. One of the main things that we look at is our dew point values. They're well to the south, that juicier air. These storms are north of the warm front. That oftentimes can give you the chance to have some stronger cores in them. And so that's what we're kind of looking at here. Getting some elevated little hailers here as things are moving on through. Haven't seen any additional reports, but we kind of thought that'd be the case. We get some hailstorms coming on through, and Sean's saying a little bit of small hail in Hammond now coming on in. So thanks for that report. kind of forwarding some information on to the National Weather Service as we watch multitude and a litany of sources. So this particular storm here, let's talk about where it's heading after that. First off, it's going to carry through central and southern Douglas and northern Coles County, and it'll continue an east-southeast path. So I think that'll bring it closer to Paris. I think US 36 and Edgar County will be okay from the hail core in this, assuming no other storms to the north form. Probably going to be more on the corridor of, let's see here, from 133, probably a great corridor for that storm to follow here as far as an estimation. So Fairgrange, Raritan, Hinesboro, Isabel, Redmond, Kansas, Paris, places like that. Ashmore might get that, and that may carry into central and southern Edgar County before it heads in. Assuming it stays strong too. Oftentimes we don't get, these storms don't stay intense for long duration events. They kind of pulse up and down a little bit. We thought there'd be a cluster somewhere, and that's been the case for us here. And so kind of watching that particular spot. So again, right now moving through eastern Moultrie, far southern Piatt counties, Champaign County now in the clear for severe hail, but there is going to be some small hail with these storms as they carry on in that direction as well. Just checking the Facebook inbox to see if we get any additional ones. But we're going to knock out the severe hail threat for most of Piatt and all of Champaign County. Could be some small hail, Sedoris, Pesotum, Allerton, Broadlands, off into southern Vermilion, but I wouldn't be too worried about that. I think Tuscola, Arcola, Humboldt, next in line for some bigger hail. It's rolling into Arthur as well here. Quite a bit of it. It's getting a lot of messages here all of a sudden, too, of some of that hail coming on in as well. So we also give an all clear for Cumberland, Clark, and Crawford counties. That storm is weakened, so not concerned for that, but I'm seeing a lot of really small hail reports coming on in. Oakley got quarter-size hail in Oakley reported. That's a delayed report for that one. Marie saying pea-size hail in Sedoris. So we'll kind of zoom on in on that here. Again, I'm going to reset, kind of take an area-wide view. There's only one real, I don't say problem, but kind of storm that's rolling on through. And I thought that might be the case. Some of the guidance indicated that would come somewhere along or near the I-72 corridor, kind of developed in the Springfield area, carried through Decatur, now moving its way through northern Moultrie, far southern Piatt counties, Atwood, Arthur. Probably Arthur is going to be getting a good show here in a second. And that's going to carry it towards Tuscola and Arcola as well. Let's go back to our sky cams real quick. Kind of take a peek at that. And you'll see that here's our Champaign camera looking south. Kind of an interesting view there. Some of those clouds. I don't think that heavy rain and storm activity is going to lift into Champaign-Urbana. We're just kind of glancing along there and seeing that cloud bank. That sometimes almost acts like a little bit of a leading edge for those storms. So through southern parts of the county, Douglas County, maybe the northern extent of that. And then we'll switch to our Mattoon camera because that looks north. And we'll also be watching our Charleston camera as that storm carries on in. Let's see if there's anything happening on that. So here's Mattoon. And kind of glance at a little more north here. Again, it's kind of dreary and gray. You don't really see a whole lot, but we know that it is there, and it's off in the distance. So it'll be approaching kind of Arthur and north of Sullivan. So it's a little ways away, but that darker sky up there is where that storm is, and low clouds between here and there kind of take our visibility away with that. But I'm not surprised by this low cloud cover. We're north of the warm front, passes on through. Not really this is not a tornado day from what we're seeing here. This is a hail day, and that's what we kind of had said all along with that threat there. If there was a tornado, you got to get the 60-degree dew points north, and that's going to be south of I-70. So not worried about that at this point as we continue to monitor things here. I think southern Illinois could squeeze out one later, perhaps. We'll see if that comes to fruition, but the hail forecast kind of hitting on the head here. So that's what we got. So there is our update. Now the storm quickly rolling into Douglas County here. Going to be Arcola, maybe even Tuscola getting in on that action a little bit. So seeing that now, wondering if anyone in Arthur or Atwood has any reports. This storm, again, moving pretty quick, moving east at about 50 miles an hour. Probably a little bit of small hail showing up here, Pasodum, right north of Villa Grove. You've got Broadlands, Allerton, places like that. Can't rule that out. The core of the activity, though, seems to be coming down 133, passing through Arthur and rolling into Arcola and Galton areas. Passing Bourbon, be south of Chicken Bristle, right into the Chesterville area. And then it may end up staying just north of Cook's Mills, be maybe grazing Humboldt, carrying on then towards Hinesboro and Bushton and eventually Oakland, kind of where we're looking at that going on. Some folks are saying, hey, they're in Champaign, they're hearing that thunder and lightning. So we know it's out there. I think our lightning data is just not working right now. And sometimes that happens. I'll click it again, see if it is popping on in. But the storm moving pretty quick. So within the next 15 minutes, it'll be across Interstate 57. That probably won't be a fun drive. Mackenzie is saying hail in Arthur. If you can provide a size, would really appreciate that. There's the lightning popping on in. I'm figuring out what's going on here. If you can provide a size report on that, that would be great. Of what sort of hail size you're getting in there. Seems like Arthur's in the midst of it here. Is it, throw a penny out the door? Is it that size, quarter? Is it pea size? Any reports we can get are great. So Arthur getting hail. And then Arcola next in line for this storm to roll on through. And got Lovington report. Got a message about some hail in Lovington, so clarifying what size that was. Kelsey also saying in Lovington there was some hail. Again, I love hearing the size that you get. The size helps us a lot with that. And one way we can measure hail size here, kind of show you what that is. Hail falls on the ground. You could compare it to a number of different things. So, pea size, we're talking quarter inch. You got dime, 3/4 inch. You've got quarter, 1 inch there. We're talking in that level. We may get up to quarter. We're not going to be getting anything bigger than that, but you can kind of see where we are. Small hail is fairly common, but once you get to that quarter size, we start to consider severe weather, and that's what we are dealing with now. So you've got a size there. Let me know what it is and how things are moving on. So, we probably get a report a quarter. Interesting, between quarter and ping pong, you actually have $half size hail, inch and a quarter. And so we can kind of measure things all the way up there. We've had people measure hail in various sizes as well, and unusual sizes. I mean, we've had some 3-inch hail reports. People will measure it by I've had a bottle cap. I've had a can of pop, the bottom of that, measure it. We've had a lighter measure it there, like a little Bic lighter. Different kind of things like that sometimes can give us a really good analogy on things. And so that's a way that we can monitor things on that. So that's what we're dealing with right now here is that one severe thunderstorm warning. For most of the rest of the area, I mean, you're watching in Macon County, you're all clear here at this point. Some lingering rain activity pushing on through. And then we've got, of course, this one storm now, mainly a Douglas, northern Coles County issue, kind of riding down 136 is what we're dealing with. So that is what we're seeing here. Okay, real quick, I'm going to take a 60-second timeout. And when I come back, we will update you here. Just going to get some information switched over and let you know what we've got. So we'll be back in about 60 seconds. All right, so we're back here now, and just watching this one little storm that's coming through. Again, kind of focusing on in now. Looks like this storm is quickly blown past Arthur, knocking on the doorstep, Tuscola, south to Arcola, and to Humboldt, kind of in the leading edge here. And so that's what we will be seeing as we move things along. That storm continuing to carry on to the south and east. And it is warned for quarter-size hail. There could be some wind gusts in there as well. A lot of times these storms, when they sit higher up, we call them elevated storms. They don't have a lot of strong wind that can make it down to the ground, but we can occasionally see that. So the warning does go for 60 mile per hour as this moves on through. So Arcola, Tuscola, Humboldt are next. After that, then we'll carry it down 133 in the direction of Oakland. It'll be Rardin, Bushton, and I think the core of it probably stays south of Newman. Probably going to carry it more towards Ashmore and Redmond, maybe into Paris before long, assuming it can stay strong. Stay strong, that is. So we'll see what happens with that. But in the meantime, kind of watching things here. It looks like for the wind, a little bit showing on up. I'm not overly impressed with that. There's probably been some blustery gust in there. You can kind of see where that leading edge is. And again, from a tornado perspective, I am not worried with this storm coming on through. This is a big rumbly thunderstorm with some hail, and we've had a few spots of some quarter-size hail being reported at that. So that's what we're dealing with this particular storm. So that's that leading edge of it right there. And so we'll watch the storm continue here. The next radar update should come here shortly, and we will monitor that. So, all right, I'm going to pull it in here and bring back on screen, and you'll see that leading edge now. Probably folks from Tuscola to Arcola and Humboldt between Champaign and Mattoon Charleston on 57. Going to get a bit of a quick, rough hit from some storms coming on through. And again, these storms moving forward at 50 mile an hour. So, about highway speed from Arcola to Oakland. It'll be there in 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes at the most, as that severe thunderstorm warning does continue. If you have any hail reports, again, kind of watching to see. Arthur has some pea-sized hail reported there. That report just coming on in. And I'm just checking some of the additional reports, see if we've got anything slipping on in. That's the main threat with this storm as it moves off to the east and southeast, is just for some hail potential with that. So really, I'm not worried about anyone on I-72 or I-74. And at this point, I-70 has calmed down a little bit. So that's what we're dealing with. I'm seeing some of these photos come on in, and I'll have to show them here in a little bit. But there's been a lot of small hail. In some places, the small hail is accumulated. By reference that I've got here, a photo coming on in from that. So I will just send that off to the NWS here. Accumulating pea-sized hail in Arthur being reported. Levington also got a pea-sized hail report. And so we will see that here. Should get that next update on radar in just a minute here as it carries on. And again, you kind of see how fast it's moving here. 1:30, this storm was in Dalton City and LaPlace. Here we are about half an hour later, and it has moved into the Arcola area, probably crossing 57 now at the rate that it's going, and continue to monitor. So we'll get that update here, but in about 25 minutes, you can get an idea here. That storm has moved about 25 miles, so 50, 60 mile an hour forward speed with that. It's a highway speed, so it's a quick hit. You get a quick downpour, you get some hail, and then it rolls on by, and so that's that storm that continues to move on through. So Arcola right now, it'll carry down 133 in the direction of Oakland, probably south of, if you're south of US 36, you can get some rough weather. North of US 36, some rumbly weather, not too concerned there. And then in Coles County, you have to be north of Mattoon, and maybe just the north side of Charleston is going to get some of that activity as it moves on through. So that'll be up the Ember River towards Oakland and Newman, places like that where the storm is heading there. Just got some pea-sized hail report in Tuscola, and pea-sized hail as well in Dalton City coming on in there. And so that's what we're dealing with that particular thing. There's that new radar update here, 2 o'clock now. I'm Jacob Dickey in the WCI3 Weather Center. And you can see this little storm sneaking on through. Looks like maybe it's coming down a little bit in intensity, but I'm sure it's raining like cats and dogs in Arcola there. You can see Tuscola just in the south side of town. So it's going to be south of 36 there. You get down to the curves where Bourbon, Galton are, kind of in that area. It's going to carry towards Hinesboro, Oakland, that leading edge there, and towards Bushton, Rardin, eventually Oakland. We will see if a new warning is issued. I've not had any severe hail reports in a little while from this one. And let's see what the hail size estimate is on radar. It'll take a second for the data to populate. Doesn't look like it's doing much there. There's a little bit showing up. That's probably just a lot of pea-sized hail based on analysis with radar. You can kind of see where some of that hail has come on through. Again, west of Cerro Gordo, there was some quarter-sized hail. We had some in the Dalton City area, some smaller hail in Lovington. We're not talking giant hail like you'd see on supercells and crazy springtime weather, but just enough ingredients there. And then there was some hail, the Hidalgo area. There may have been a brief period there between Hidalgo and Hazel Dell where some of that hail got a little larger than 1 inch, especially 2-3 miles east of Hidalgo. That's where we've had that little pocket there. Sometimes when you see those blues, let's just click it. It's probably going to be estimating there is some ping pong ball size hail, perhaps, with that one. So that's our situation there, but really small little pocket. You get the idea. Look how many people are not getting or have not had hail in those cells as it's moved on through. So likely here, based on what I'm seeing, still a good thunderstorm. The warning goes until 2:15. There's a chance they may drop it unless here we'll just check the velocity product and take a view of that from our Lincoln radar here. And I'll just check a couple of different versions. There's going to be some breezy winds in there, I'm sure. That may be a lot, though. Sometimes that doesn't mix down to the surface, but we'll just sample some of that wind here with relative velocity and then base velocity. Two different ways to analyze the wind. And radar estimating. Of course, it's giving me the severe thunderstorms, some 40 to 50 mile an hour gusts that are in there, according to the estimates from radar. So that gives me an idea. Yeah, a little bit of wind pushing on through, but not the worst thing we've ever had. But for November standards, hey, a nice little thunderstorm coming on through the area. And that's what we've got. Someone's saying, Brittany's saying constant thunder in Arcola too. Yeah, I would believe that here. With these types of storms as well, a lot of times the way the setup is you hear the rumbles and it's like continually rumbly thunderstorms coming on through. There's that new update. Arcola is already clear. It's getting ready to cross 130 south of Camargo, moving to Hinesboro and Oakland. That warning goes until 2:15 and moving 50, 60 mile an hour. So highway speed probably here at 210. It'll be Hinesboro and 215, 220 rolling into Oakland there. Maybe even a little sooner than that. That might be a little early. And then you can see kind of a sharp cutoff. If you're south of 36, I think you got a chance to get a little bit more active weather. It looks like that line, though, just in the edge. So somebody could be living on the north side of Tuscola up by the pool, some of the subdivisions north of town, and be like, oh, it's not bad. And someone lives south of McDonald's in Tuscola, and it's raining cats and dogs, and maybe a little hail down there. Kind of a sharp cutoff. And then even looking north, we'll start to peek at our sky cams again real quick. So let me populate that. There's the Mattoon camera looking a little more ominous, a little more dark here. I'll bring that full screen because it's always nice to see. It's really great to have our network of cameras too, especially now that all of them can turn. Just a great asset, great resource for us. But on a day like today, because there's just some low cloud cover in place, you're not going to get much of a view. It just looks dark in that general direction. And so that's what we got there. It looks like, see some flashing lights at the fire department. Maybe they're getting ready to go out on a call. Oh, they're just backing in. They're parking for the day there. Got my attention. And there they go. Lights are off. So get to see lots of cool things here with these cameras. So that's looking a bit more north and east. And then I'm going to switch it to our Charleston camera. This one's pointed down right now. So give me a second and I will turn that a little bit. This is going to pass just north of Charleston. I bet we're seeing some of that dark sky there in the north and west. As it passes on by. But you can kind of see that little haze up there. It looks dark. The low clouds, though, kind of keep the darkness from looking too crazy. Sometimes the summer storms come on through, and you've got just a big old line of storms, and you can see that miles and miles away. A lot of times in these types of scenarios, they're not quite doing long distance views because that cloud bank sits so low. We're north of that warm front, just not having a lot of things going in our favor for visibility here at this point. But if you're close to the ground, you're out in the country, you're probably looking, it looks dark over there. So that's what we've got. Okay, there's Storm Tracker Doppler. Back to that here. We'll have another update coming momentarily. We're not far away from our severe thunderstorm warning from being expired. We can add Moultrie and Piatt County all clear here. No issues there. Now, basically, west of I-57, is pretty much clear now as fast as this is moving here. Still some heavy rain in Humboldt, also Tuscola, but the main core of the storm is now moving along 133 there east of Arcola. And that continues to move towards Bushton. It moves towards Rardon. It's moving towards Fairgrange. It's probably in Kemp and Filson by now, getting some of that. And then we'll see it roll into Oakland, up there, Walnut Point State Park, and continue off to the south and east along 133. I haven't seen many reports, but if you're in Douglas or northern Coles County, if you have any hail reports, I haven't seen many. I've just had some small hail reports from this storm coming on through. There's that radar update. I mean, it's already knocking on the door of Hinesboro. It's 2:06, so it might be in Oakland by 2:15. How fast it's moving here. Just a quick moving little storm in that direction. So again, you got any hail reports, would love to see that. Let's zoom out and just kind of get an area-wide regional view here. Again, that's a little cluster of storms kind of quickly formed there near Springfield, and it'll be out of here before long. We may not get an extension of this warning. We'll see here. Just checking with the National Weather Service. Not saying a whole lot going on. They're continuing this warning until 2:15, but that's kind of the scoop that we've got there. And then as I pull in some of the graphics, some of the conditions here, again, look at the dew point down in Carbondale, 61, St. Louis, 59. That's where gradients are just a little bit better. Down there, when you see a little more moisture, a lot of times that allows for more instability. That's where some of those ingredients are a little bit better for severe weather. In fact, they did upgrade parts of southern Illinois, southeastern Missouri on a slight risk of severe weather. That came out a little bit ago during our coverage here. So I'll pop the SPC outlook out. You can see down in southern Illinois there, that yellow zone, better chance for hail there. And then let's see if we can't pull in the tornado risk as well. Just kind of update you on that. I think it's still a 2 down there. But we could probably argue, I think, from Carbondale and where that slight risk is, maybe it's going to be a 3 at this point. But again, we're just at a 1. I mean, we're north of that warm front. Those dew point values just aren't going to make it here. Give you an idea of that. Let me show you in some of the guidance, kind of show you on Future Track what dew point looks like. Doing a decent job. I mean, we're just on the edge of that area. It may briefly spike to mid-50s, but then you can kind of see how that dry air kind of wraps on in, and we never get that juice and instability farther north. Now, you know, folks are saying, hey, dew point's only 48 in Champaign, and there's a severe thunderstorm passing just south of town. Elevated levels of instability are in place. You can have different layers. Think of it like the atmosphere like a big old layer of cake. And a lot of times, you know, this is the surface dew points. And then varying things can play out where higher up in the atmosphere, we can have more instability. And that's why these storms are tapping in with a little bit of severe weather activities. So that's kind of the thought process there is, you know, because we don't have this at the surface, there's not much juice, I should say. You can't get those storms that are having some rotation aloft to make it down to the ground. So I'm really not concerned about that. And I think my concern for this storm continues to drop more and more here as it moves to the south end of these. So it's crossing 130 there now. And Oakland rolling on in, going to be some rumbly storms moving there. The next radar update probably is going to carry this on the doorstep of Oakland. 60-mile-per-hour winds and quarter-size hail possible. That warning goes till 2:15. That's 6 minutes from now. From what I'm seeing, I don't think there'll be an extension. I think we'll drop it, and that may end up being all we have to worry about today. There still will probably be some small hail. There will still probably be as well some small hail, and then there probably will be a little bit of blustery winds, but you know, there's a little bit showing up here. That's going to be 40 to 50-mile-an-hour gusts there. We're on in northern Coles, northeastern Coles, and then southeastern Douglas County. But the severe threat to me, you know, coming down a little bit as far as things look. So we'll continue to monitor that. Been a lot of lightning with the storm, too. You can see all the thunder and lightning reports there over the last little bit. And that continues for a little while there. And then even in southern Champaign and southern Vermilion County, folks there probably getting some reports saying, hey, it's rumbling up here. You expecting that? And there may be some booming rumbles too, some rumbly, you know, rumbles carrying on in the distance. That could be certainly something that you're hearing out there. And I got no other activity forming in the backside there. Give you an idea here. These little cells are the earlier storms that came out of Cumberland County. There's probably still some hail with that. That's well into Indiana now, passing Clay City and some more storms there. And then we'll keep an eye from afar down here. Cape G, Carbondale, Sykeston, Paducah, down in that area, Perryville. That's kind of where maybe that severe risk can pick up. And again, kind of look at the severe weather outlook. That dew point values, they're a little higher down there. So maybe there's a chance for a rogue tornado somewhere in there or two. That's a tornado risk. I'm going to call it a 3 now down in that neck of the woods. Some of these southeast moving storms, just enough down there. But from a watch perspective, we've got no watches, no tornado watch, no severe thunderstorm watch, no indications that we will get one. Sometimes in these days when you have very marginal setups, you don't get watches because the threat's so isolated that it's not really that much of a concern here. So, well, hey, how about that? We did just get a new severe thunderstorm warning. That's going to be for much of Edgar, northern Clark, Coles, and Douglas counties. And let me see what the National Weather Service says on that. Also want to check and make sure things are getting pushed on digital side. And that one should have another one go. Some of the hail reports coming out of Arthur and Lovington. Whew. A lot of really small hail popping on in. So that's what we got there. Going to continue for 60-mile-per-hour winds and quarter-size hail. This is going to include Kansas. It does actually technically cover Charleston. Just north of Charleston is where that warning is. But they did pull it a little south. And my thinking is there's probably some winds trying to push out a little bit. It's not a widespread wind bag, but there's just some pockets here and there. And you can still get 45 mile an hour gust and have some issues with that. But, that new warning did come out, and that's going to continue here for us until 3 o'clock for Douglas, Coles, Clark, Edgar. It also actually does include a little sliver of Cumberland County there. That's going to be far northeast part. So some folks in Cumberland County probably hearing that warning. Green up Toledo, you're fine. Neoga, you're fine. This is really Casey to Diona, Lerna northward. Kind of the far rural part south of Westfield, the oil field. That area is in there included. Ashmore included. It's going to include Paris and Vermilion. It's going to include Brockton. Horace does not include Chrisman. Just on the very edge, Newman and Hume included in that warning. And then no concerns at this point for Champaign or Vermilion counties. This core kind of dropping to the south and to the east. So that's what we're dealing with there. They're typing out a little information, so we'll see what their thought process is. But I would not be surprised if in Oakland, getting some wind gust. Wind gust in that. See if I got a buddy. Sometimes my friend Nick Turner, sometimes he'll call me when something's hitting Oakland, and I've not heard from him. He's kind of some of my eyes and ears, and we also had a weather intern from down there that has sometimes sent stuff to me. So we'll see if we hear from either of them. But you can see here that warning continues. So continue to move south and east there. And as quick as this is going, next up, Borton, Kansas, Redmond, Grandview, Ashmore, kind of those areas where this core of the storm is. Newman's probably getting some rain and thunder, but I'm not really worried about that. I think the worst of the storm is now between Ashmore and Oakland, carrying off to the north and to the east. And we continue to see that the severe thunderstorm warning for Douglas. It's going to be southeastern Douglas, really Tuscola, Arcola, Camargo, Hinesboro. I'll give you an all clear now. Newman, you're pretty much clear if you're Newman north. But we're watching now south of Newman, Oakland, Ashmore, Brockton, Redmond, kind of those areas for maybe the red line, center line, and continues off of kind of riding along 133 there. So that'll carry it in the direction of Paris south and around Route 1 then down into Clark County, north of Marshall. And I think they probably broaden that. And the National Weather Service saying, too, with this, there's a bit of uncertainty in how much wind is reaching the surface. But they're kind of monitoring where some of that wind may try and mix down here. So they're just playing things safe and seeing what happens. You kind of analyze with them. there might be a little bit. Sometimes in the back of these storms, you can get these inflow jets, and that can help them mix down a little bit. So maybe in that area, could be seeing a little bit of some wind as well. If you got any wind reports, no one said anything to me about wind. If you have some wind reports, would be curious to hear that. I've heard more of hail. And so that may be the case. Still can't rule it out. We'll kind of throw on the hail size estimate here. And again, it takes some time. There might be a little bit in there. Could be more of just a lot of small hail than there is a little bit of big hail, if that makes sense. That's just a little pocket there. So we'll continue to monitor that. Okay, let me pop up the warning again. We'll take a view of that. Again, that warning now extended. So anyone west of 57, all clear. Mattoon, you're good. Charleston, it's passing just north of town. You're in the warning. And speaking of that, let's just bring in our Charleston camera now. Starting to get a little rain. Nice to see that in Charleston as it comes on down. Been some nice rain event for this system and our next system Thursday, Friday as well. You'll hear Chief Meteorologist Kevin Leidy talk about that. But some rain popping up there. We kind of scan to the north and to the east. Bit of lightning and thunder as well. A little bit of wind there. Showing up. And that remains the case there. So we'll just look at that for a little bit. If you got any photos too, you got a hail report, let me know. Reach out. Would love to see that. Checking a few things out. Some hail reports continue to come our way. A lot of small hail reports being reported here. So that's what we continue to watch. So at this point here, we're still here. I don't think that I have a large amount of concern at this point. And as this moves into Edgar County, we'll probably stay on here for another 10 minutes just in case. But from what I'm looking at, that warning's more out of an abundance of caution, less out of we're getting some problems here. So Edgar, northern Clark County, Coles County, places like that. And this storm does, to me, one thing we're seeing is that it's moving farther away from the radar. You can kind of see earlier when that came out of Decatur how much stronger it looked. It's still holding its own, but not the biggest concern I've ever had. And then from a wind perspective here, there's a little bit. Looking at various radars and things of that. But I'm not sure that's all making it down to the ground, if that makes sense, where, there's winds aloft, but because we're a little more stable near the surface, none of that wind trying to mix down. So again, I've not heard of any wind, Oakland, Ashmore, Arcola, Hinesboro, Bushton, places like that. If you've got any wind, let me know, and would appreciate hearing those reports as these storms continue to move on through. So. Just had a dime-size hail report come from Oakland. Seeing that coming through the chat. Just checking out some of these other reports coming on through. We're kind of laying things low here at this point. So if you're watching and you're like, oh, not much happening, that's because I don't think there is a lot happening here. So sometimes that's how things go. We're not majorly concerned. I don't look at things and think, oh, we're in some big trouble there. I'm like, oh yeah, there's some storms coming on through. I really think by 2:30, I'm probably going to wrap this up. So that just gives you an idea of what's going on. Just squeezing in some of these reports that I'm getting as well. Last night, I got a report from the Oconee area, south of Pana, and they basically had accumulating hail. It was really a fascinating little event there. Probably the biggest deal at this point, kind of looking at some other data, I think the storm has kind of pulsed it down a little bit. There might be some breezy winds. The lightning doesn't seem quite as impressive, but I'm sure some of you are hearing that, kind of deep, constant rumbliness. That's probably the bigger deal. But even earlier, from a lightning perspective, my lightning data only goes back so far. But I know here it was producing a lot more lightning and thunder. And usually that's an indication that storms are a lot stronger. There's still some there. I don't want to say it's not a strong storm, but I don't think we're getting a lot of issues with that here as it continues to move to the east. So we're just kind of hanging out. Redmond right now. It's already past Oakland. I mean, these storms are just moving along here. Kansas, Redmond. We'll probably wait till it gets into Paris and then wind things down. But the warning, an abundance of caution more than it is, I think, anything significant. I've not had any wind reports. That's one thing that they're not sure about. And sometimes with these elevated storms, we're not really sure about how that wind is, but there could be some breezy winds. So if some of the folks, April just saying the wind is picked up in Kansas. If it's to the point where you got tree damage and stuff, let us know. But there'll be some gentle breezes and some gusty breezes in these storms as they move on through, but there's nothing to me that makes me really concerned here. I probably would normally just end it now, but this is a good little litmus test. I get to make sure a few things are working as they should for when a bigger event happens, because it's been a little while since we've had severe weather in central Illinois. It really has. We just had a few reports come on in. There's that one little, let's just talk about this little guy here. This is down southwest Indianapolis, well into Indiana. That actually is the original storm that went through Greenup and Hidalgo and places like that. I'm just curious more than anything. See if that's updating at all. Again, those storms don't have any surface rotations. That's good news. You can see the new warning kind of trimmed things back here. All clear. Cumberland, really most of Cumberland County was clear. Douglas County, all clear. I probably would say everyone west of Charleston, west of Oakland is clear. We'll give it a few more minutes for places close to Kansas there, east of Charleston, past the Speedway, so that Ashmore, Kansas, Westfield. But even that area, not the most intense storm. Really, Kansas to Redmond is where that main core is. Some folks saying a little bit of hail being reported there. And I'll forward that on. Half-inch hail in so folks have a nice little chat on the YouTube channel. Davis down in Cumberland County and Kevin there. We got people watching on YouTube. We've got people watching on X. We've got people watching on our app right now. We've got people watching on Facebook, of course. And then an update here. Let's see, marginal risk continues for the area to account for some hail. We've had a small handful of reports come our way. And this is mainly a hail event for us. $226 here. Tony's saying he can hear the rumbling in Paris. I'm going to get this storm past Paris and on its way into Indiana, and then we'll wrap this up here. I got some other things to take care of, and soon Kevin will be in, and by the time he's in, I think we'll probably be done with things here. But that is what we're doing. Kind of scanning through social media, see if anyone's got any pictures. It seems like for the most part, this storm had a ton of small hail, but for instance, here, I got a picture from Sierra. So we still got a couple hundred people on. Really, I'll take one last view area wide here. Just kind of take a look at the home view. Get a little rain here in Champaign, Vermilion counties. There's this little cluster carries on out. Then our attention will probably turn to anything trying to pop down this way. And maybe we've got our first attempt at convection down in southeast Missouri. We'll have to watch, but for the most part, I think once this cluster gets on through, we'll probably be all clear in central Illinois. We might have to just watch and make sure something doesn't pop up. But as I look here, I'm going to pull up the future track, kind of see how it's looking. A different model for those weather enthusiasts. This is the HER. It's picking up on a little cluster here, but through the rest of the day, then clears us out. So that's some good news. And then I will take a peek here at our in-house model. We call it the graph. It did a really good job. I was really impressed with the graph this morning. Pretty much nailed the idea of a single cluster of storms north of that front. And then it clears us out for the rest of the day, which is some good news. Just for fun, I'm going to pull this out and kind of doing a little meddling with this on the fly. Well, let's just watch and see what it's doing down there in south of St. Louis. It tries to pick up. They don't look all that impressive, but there's a few little cells in there that, on a day like today, you're not going to get giant rotating storms. You'll get almost these little mini storms, and it can look like not much in radar, but there could be a little brief tornado in there at any point, and that's what the southern part of the state will deal with down into southeast Missouri, Kentucky, be down towards Vienna, Paducah, maybe Harrisburg, Mount Vernon, places like that, Marion, Carbondale, kind of in the zone for the next few hours where something might try and get going. But it looks like once this cluster is out of here, we'll probably be all clear for us, which is some good news here. So that a little bit what we're dealing with. So let me just I'll do it one more time, bring the sky cams up. There's Charleston. Storms are now moving quickly to the east from there, but a little rain coming on down. We don't have a Paris camera. I wish we did. There's been talks about that. Because we'd see that. But again, the storm kind of moving through. It looks like the core maybe heading from Paris south. That's going to carry it to some of the light bulb plants down there, west and south side, and maybe towards Vermilion and Elbridge. And then it'll probably pass through maybe just north of Terre Haute. But once we get east of Route 1 there, we got some viewers in Vermilion. We got some viewers in Elbridge, some followers there. But once we get this storm in the next 5 minutes, it's 2:30 now. I'm probably going to give us another radar update. And then I'm going to let things wind down, as I really don't think there's much happening with the storm at this point. But just in case, I don't know, sometimes we drop things off and people are like, hey, where's our coverage? You're not covering us anymore. It's not because don't like you or anything like that. It's because storms are weak, right? They're weaker. They're not an issue. And that's the case with this one carrying on through. central Illinois. So oh. Just saw a picture of some hail, and I'm trying to track down more where it's at, but some hail in Crawford County in the Annapolis area. It's going to be north of Robinson. That's some big hail. Whew. See if I can find that photo again. Let me see, Sue. Let's see. I'm going to post this photo on my Facebook page, and you can go check that out. But some golf ball size hail reported north of Robinson in Crawford County, the Annapolis area. Taking care of a little housekeeping here. So, Chris and Tony is saying getting some pea-sized hail, some strong winds, and lots of rain. Would you say the wind is knocking any trees down, anything like that? Those reports would be appreciated. I think most of it's probably 40 to 45 mile-an-hour gusts. That's just below severe thunderstorm limits. But we do have an issue in Paris where the radar beam sits pretty high. It's like 9,000 feet up. So we don't often get a lot of view there. And that's why sometimes we stay on this as well, because we get those reports from our viewers. So if you've got any reports like that, we really appreciate that. Checking out, getting a number of rainbow reports as well. So just checking things out. A number of rainbow photos coming on in, so appreciate those reports in the area. All right, folks, I think we're going to wrap things up here. I'm going to mute the mic, and then you'll see this taper away after a minute. It's 2:34 right now, and by 2:40, I'll turn the stream off. But we'll just leave the radar up just in case anyone's got a last report to stick on in there. And then once that happens, we will end this and return to regular programming, I suppose you say. We just turned the digital stream off, and it'll keep you updated. So thanks for watching. I'm Jacob Dickey in the Weather Center. We'll keep you updated with any changes. Download the WCIA3 weather app. And if you've got any reports of hail, things like that, let us know. Have a great rest of your day.